Hola, ¿qué tal? I'm Rob Martinez, and this is Let's Talk New Mexico History. Today I want to say a few words about the enslavement of Native American peoples during the colonial period of Spain's world empire. When Spain first started to come to the Americas in the late 1400s, in the 1490s, there really wasn't anything to protect the native peoples in the Caribbean. The Spanish had no idea they were going to be encountering these people or these lands. They called them Indians because they thought they were in India, Indios, and they really weren't sure where these people fit in God's plan, in the plans of the Catholic Church or the Spanish Empire, which was just starting to grow at that time period in history. Well, Queen Isabel and King Fernando, the Catholic kings, the Catholic monarchs, they were also having a moral problem in dealing with these new people. Queen Isabel, she was the first to really stand up for these people in the Americas because she recognized they were and are human. She definitely put in place laws, guidelines on how to treat the native peoples of the Americas. She even went so far as to say, "You cannot enslave my vassals." So she looked at the Native Americans the same way she looked at the people of Spain or other parts of her empire. I wish I could say that from that point onward, the Spanish never enslaved native peoples, never abused them, never broke the law. But we know that's not reality. The laws are the ideal. Any law, if you look at any law in modern times, the speed limit is 65 miles per hour. Well, that's an ideal. Fact is, people break that law all the time. The Spanish lawyers came up with an interesting document called the Requerimiento, the requirement. This was a document that told the history of the world, with Spain at the center of that history. It also was a declaration of conquest, colonization, and land grabbing. The document was to be read to native peoples, pueblos, communities throughout the Americas when the Spanish were going to take over, were going to conquer. On the surface, the document seems to be somewhat gentle. It says in Spanish, not in native languages, it says in Spanish, "You are now going to be subjects of the Spanish monarchs. You are now going to be Catholics, and you are going to be vassals of the Spanish soldiers and Spanish settlers that are coming to your community. If you do not agree to this, we are justified in making war on you, enslaving you, and taking your land." This idea goes back to St. Augustine, his just war theory. So you can imagine that there were many times, most times, when Native Americans were scratching their heads, maybe even throwing back curse words at the Spanish as this was read to them in Spanish. There was definitely a misunderstanding and a miscommunication most times. And it was a justification to make war on native peoples, to enslave them, and to take their lands. Now, the Spanish brought Catholic priests, sometimes Franciscans, sometimes Dominicans. They brought these priests to convert, to evangelize the native peoples, which many priests came to do in good faith. But still, there was an intolerance of native religions, native dances, native rituals, native practices. The Franciscans especially viewed those things as demonic, and that the people, the native peoples, were in the grip of the devil and had to be liberated from those evil practices. They were people of their times. Let's be clear. The Spanish in the 1500s had their own version of manifest destiny. They had previously fought 700 years against the Muslim Moors, los Moros in Spain, the 700-year Reconquista. With the defeat of the Moors in 1492, the Spanish were on a roll. Spanish soldiers, Spanish government, Spanish Catholic religion. So wherever they went, they felt they were right and the people they were encountering were in the wrong. That's fine. They were people of their time. However, the people they were encountering had a different point of view. They had a different perspective. So, the Requerimiento was in place for roughly 50, 60 years, and then it was officially outlawed. Now, as I said before, just because something is outlawed doesn't mean it doesn't happen. We know that in New Mexico in the 1540s, Francisco Vázquez de Coronado had the Requerimiento read a few times at Zuni, at Tigüe, in the present-day area of Albuquerque. So he used the Requerimiento in New Mexico. When Juan de Oñate encountered the Pueblo people in 1598, he had them take an oath of obedience and vassalage. That was an edited, shorter version of the Requerimiento, but the spirit and wording was very much the same. And it eventually led to violence and warfare and a lot of misunderstandings between the Spanish and the Pueblo people in the early phases of that colony. Almost 100 years later, in the 1690s, Diego de Vargas comes to New Mexico, and he invokes Requerimiento on at least 3 occasions in northern New Mexico. I believe at Jemez at least one time, he invokes the word Requerimiento, a warning to the Pueblo people to submit or be put to the sword. So, we know that this is part of our history here in New Mexico. It's part of the larger history of the Americas. The Spanish would use these legalistic and somewhat religious undertones to justify enslaving Native Americans. We know that it happened because we have documents that say so. In the 1660s in Parral, south of New Mexico and what's now Mexico, Alonso Garcia, a New Mexico colonist and settler, got in trouble for selling Apache slaves down there. Governors were reviewed, Spanish governors in New Mexico, and it was quite common in their reviews for it to be revealed that they would make war on Apache people to take cautivos, captives, and sell them as slaves in the mining districts in Nueva España, New Spain to the south. We know it happened. It's in the documents. So into the 1700s in New Mexico, we see this happening. That's why there's genízaros, those children of war, cautivos, captives. Yes, it was being done in all directions. Let's be clear. Comanches would fight with Apaches and with Navajos. They were all fighting each other. They would take cautivos, captives. They would bring them to sell to Spanish people, a rescate, a ransom. Sometimes it was said they might kill the little children if they weren't bought. So the Spanish would ransom them and put them in households as servants, slaves, and later to become warriors to fight on the New Mexico frontier. The spirit of Requerimiento is in New Mexico. in the 1700s used as a justification to take women and children from native communities and put them in Spanish households as servants and slaves. It was part of what people did. Yes, it's part of history, but it's something we need to learn about because it is part of history. So, I'm just going to leave on this note. 1821, we stop being part of Spain, we become part of Mexico, but the enslavement of natives continues. We become a territory of the United States in 1850, and the enslavement continues. Black slavery is outlawed. Native American slavery is supposed to be outlawed, but it continues even into the early 1900s. It's part of many family stories. And yes, Native peoples took Spanish children and women. Native peoples took American women and children. Everyone was doing it. It's a part of our history that has shaped us, it has molded us, and it helps us to understand our mixed heritage, our mixed cultures, sometimes born of violence, but also of a coming together, unity, and creating something quite special right here in New Mexico. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Adios. Goodbye.